Trent McDuffie's going to be an all-pro this season, and he's going to lead a reconstituted secondary that's going to have some changes. Today on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, Chiefs Kingdom. It is nice to see you. We are brought to you today by FanDuel. You can make every single moment more right now as the summer winds down. All those sporting events are going on. You can get into the action because FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a daily booster bonus every single day, all summer long. You can find it at FanDuel.com/lockedon. You can get started. We're going to get started here as we are rolling towards training camp. The outside corners, the highlight of the secondary, the guys you got to rely on islands. Today, we are going through them. I'm Ryan Tracy, the founder of Rogue Analytics and Performance Consulting, NFL33.com, as well as RGR Football. My partner, Chris Clark, over at Chiefs Corner. You can find all of his writing as we get ready for this season across the board. I'm excited about it. You're excited about it. There's a lot of corner talent on this roster. Too much so, to be honest. We'll talk about the depth coming up later in the show. We have to get to who is going to be the balance of the top three. That's coming up in a little bit, but right now it starts and stops with Trent McDuffie, the best recognized player last season in a lot of foreigners, outsiders' opinion. And the loss of L'Jarius Sneed makes Trent McDuffie the top dog in Kansas City. Some argue that he already was. He has the potential to be an all-pro this season. I think it's personally going to happen because I think he's going to be able to be a little bit more natural, use the boundary, because he's going to be an outside corner in this scheme this season. And I think that's smart. I think that is the best way to try to take away part of the field in its entirety by putting Trent McDuffie on a receiver and saying, we'll deal with everything else over here.
Boy, tell me how you really feel about Trent McDuffie.
I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out.
I think he's going to be really good. I do think that he could be an all-pro. I think that he has a ton of talent, and it is going to be unleashed in 2024, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. If you go back, and I think this is the craziest thing, if you go back 2 seasons before he even started, as a rookie, he had a hamstring injury, and you wondered whether or not he's going to be able to stay healthy. And he has stayed healthy. He has played at a fantastic level his entire career in Kansas City. And yeah, he missed some time his first year in the league. But when he came back and really solidified the Chiefs' defensive backfield. And then you look at what he was able to do last year, look at what I think he's going to do this year. I agree with you. I think he's going to be an all-pro or very close to an all-pro if he's not. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch him. And I'm curious to see he has the talent. Are they going to have him shadow the number one wide receiver? Are they going to move him around? Or are they going to have him just pick a side of the field and stay there? That's the big question when we go into this. L'Jarius Sneed is a guy that traveled his last year in Kansas City. Are they going to do that with McDuffie? That's the big question. And if they do, what is that going to mean for the future of this defense and how that's going to work? Because while Sneed did it in his last year, McDuffie is going to be here for another 3 seasons.
And it's very much, I think, a different scenario because there's more of a question now, in my opinion. If you have your top corner travel, that means the other corners have to be able to move around as well. And L'Jarius Sneed was able to travel with the best receiver because of Trent McDuffie's presence. Now with Trent being the top dog, it does come down more and more so to who else can cover that? Who else is variable enough to go inside, outside, move around, or take away the next side, because you can't always just have one guy that is a travelable or a traveling corner. And I think that's where we're not certain yet. And I don't even know that Steve Spagnuolo is certain. It might take a little while. I think Trent McDuffie has the skill set to do it. I would like to see that because I think it's tough. When you're able to use that technique and be that variable, it sets the defense on a different path. And I do think that was part of the success of last year's defense. But if you're not able to get there, it's like we get a glimpse of it for one season. Now we got to pull back to playing sides again. It is a justification based on your talent and your roster. And every year's a little bit different. I hope they can still pull it off. If they can't, then I'm comfortable just giving Trent his choice. I think he'll probably likely prefer to play on the left-hand side. But give him his choice. Take that side of the field. The right hand of the quarterback, I think, is probably where he wants to be for opportunities, and just let him go for it.
I think it's fascinating. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch because you sit here and you look at all these corners, and the top 4 corners for the Chiefs, as we're talking about the outside corners, more than likely are all guys that came in the same draft class, and that is just absolutely crazy. And we're going to talk about the depth, and we're going to talk about the top 3 here in a little bit. But my whole point with saying that is you look at it and you know that these guys are going to be playing together for another couple of seasons. So it's not, and they've been playing together for several seasons already. So you've got at least all 4 of them probably for at least 2 more seasons, 2024 and 2025. And then past that, that's a different scenario. But the other thing that's going to be fascinating about it is you look at, Trent McDuffie and what he was able to do in the slot last year. And he was looked at as being an all-pro in the slot last year. I think he was better in the slot than L'Jarius Sneed was when Sneed was here. And the reason I bring that up is because when you start talking about a guy that is going to have to travel with the best wide receiver, some teams would look at their best wide receiver and they may put him inside at times. McDuffie is even better inside than Sneed was. He has the ability to do that. He's already been doing it for 2 seasons in Kansas City, and he's been phenomenal at it. So you can't just take your best wide receiver and put him in the slot expecting him to get off your number 1 corner, because McDuffie can play that position. That is another, just feather in the cap of Steve Spagnuolo.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think that's the justification for being able to go to a slightly different system. Who mans what, where, opposite of Trent McDuffie. Let him be the top dog. I think he certainly will be. The question is, who are the guys opposite him? When you start in the NFL, you need a trio. And I think it's going to be very interesting here. The money is in a certain spot right now on who's seeing action in OTAs, but things change in training camp. I still think Najee Johnson and Shamari Connor are those guys. We're going to take a look at them as well as the other options coming up next here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Listen, we all love sports, and sometimes it just slows down to a point where there's not as many playoff runs. Basketball, hockey going on at the same time. Now you get a little bit of relaxation here. It's Major League Baseball season. You get into the action at FanDuel because they are trying to pump you up whenever you want to. Right now, all you got to do is sign in, open the app, and you can go dream up whatever bets you want to whenever you're in the mood. This is all in preparation for the NFL season. So right now, FanDuel this summer is giving away to all customers a daily boost or bonus, no matter what. That's right. There's something for everyone, every day, all summer long, for everyone. It's over at FanDuel. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you get into it now, you can head over there right this second at FanDuel.com/lockedon. You can start making the most of your summer because we're right in the thick of it right now. It's at FanDuel, the official sportsbook betting partner of Major League Baseball and the NFL. You can get everything you need 24/7 from actual hosts who know their actual teams inside and out. No more national talking heads that don't quite know enough to be telling you opinions and shouting at you from the television set, whether it's on ESPN or CBS or whoever you like to watch. Get in the action here and get it from the locals at Locked On Sports Today here on YouTube and on Amazon Fire TV. Now, this is the part that gets really exciting for me because I am, at my heart, a defensive-minded coach and a team builder. I want to see the progression of the pyramid as you build dynasties. This is the thing. L'Jarius Sneed, you mentioned him a lot in the last period, and he kind of sets the paradigm here because L'Jarius was always a guy that could start on the outside, and if you were in base, you only had 2 corners on the field, he's your outside guy. Yep. And when you had to go to a nickel where you have 3 corners, he moved in. It wasn't a new player on the field. He just moved inside. That's not going to be the case this season. Unless something goes wrong where Trent McDuffie has to be inside, which they are trying very, very hard not to do. He's going to be on one side. You're going to have a starting outside corner on the other side. We'll get to him in a second. And Shamari Connor is going to come in and be your nickel. That is their goal. We don't know if that's going to happen, but that's what they're pushing towards. That's what Steve Spagnuolo wants. It's a little bit of a departure. But I think the reasoning behind that is they expect people to run at them a little bit more. So they might be in the base a little bit more. And that puts that much more pressure on who can be that other outside corner. Right now, according to OTAs, it looks like it's Najee Johnson, who had really been in the mix to be that guy last season until he got that injury. He was ahead of Joshua Williams. He was ahead of Jalen Watson. And to his credit, it looks like he's picked up right where he left off. We'll see how he survives the gruel of training camp, especially knowing that they get like 8 extra practices this season. But right now, Najee Johnson's the front runner, and I'm comfortable with that. Are you?
Extremely. You look at what he was doing in training camp last year, and I think that he was going to be a starter last year. And I think that he was going to be the guy that came on the field. McDuffie and Sneed would be your top 2 corners, and then Najee Johnson would come in as the third corner, but McDuffie would slide inside. And I think that that's probably what they were going to be looking at. And when you think about that, when you remember that he was going to be in that position, you look at this defense, they would have probably been even better had Johnson been able to stay healthy last year and played, because he was playing very well in training camp. So it's going to be exciting to see what they're able to do with him. And I do think he is that guy that is going to come in and be the number 2 guy. I am curious to see, and we've talked about this. We talked about this a little bit with Brian Cook. I'm curious to see if they do it with Johnson as well. Do they give him some acclimation time? Not saying that he can't practice the first couple of practices, but give him days off. He is coming back from an ACL injury. There's no reason to push it when you're talking about those days in training camp. Give him time to recover and make sure that you're not going to, overuse, I guess, the ACL that he tore last year. So I do think it's something that's going to be a lot of fun to watch, and there's going to be huge competition. And he's going to be in a situation where he's going to be chased by Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson trying to get on the field. And that's just the reality of it. And I agree with you. Jamari Connor's likely to be that third corner, if you want to talk about it that way. And we've already discussed him being that nickel guy. So that's to be expected. And at this point, I think Najee is going to step in, and a credit to him, because he came in as a 7th round pick with the rest of this corner class. Or no, was he undrafted? Was he a 7th round pick? I'm trying to remember. Okay.
I am really comfortable saying that 3 starters in the secondary and both outside corners are going to be guys that were brought in 2022. It's a heck of a draft class. And if it's not Najee Johnson, the 2 main competitors for that spot are Jalen Watson, a guy who played and had success very early, 7th round pick in 2022. Don't think he progressed as much as he should have last year, to be honest. But the other option, Joshua Williams, got a little bit more playing time, had a bigger leap to get into the NFL. He was a 4th round selection in 2022. And I do think those guys, having flip-flopped in and out, back and forth, have gotten good experience. And so if those guys are your backup plans at outside corner, you're in really good shape because they've seen a lot of snaps between them. They've made plays between them. And again, you'll have Trent McDuffie, Brian Cook, Najee Johnson, Jalen Watson, and Joshua Williams, 5 DBs that would come from the same class in whatever mixed up order they play in.
Yeah. And a guy that's even younger than him and them and Jamari Conner that's been there for 1 year. The youth in the secondary is absolutely ludicrous and ridiculous. And then you have, Jaden Hicks, like we talked about already as well, at safety. So, I mean, you have so many guys in the secondary. The youth is really the movement that they've got in the secondary, which when you look at it is phenomenal. I mean, you look at what Tennessee is paying L'Jarius Sneed this year, and Kansas City's entire cornerback class isn't going to cost that much.
No offense, I love L'Jarius. Picked him out before he was ever a Chief, and I kind of wish he was there just because I like him. That says it all. An entire group of corners for what you're paying one guy. And that's the only reason, really, that I think L'Jarius Sneed is not a Chief any longer. So what does that do? It gives you great competition. When they came into the league in the 2022 class, they all started working together, studying film together, off-season together. We saw some publicity from the Chiefs themselves about how tight that group is. And I think that only makes things better for this season. Yes, they're competing against each other now. There's not as many outside competitors, right? Obviously, L'Jarius was there before. They had other corners in the mix as well. But now it's really them. They're the core of this cornerback group. And I think that promotes what I call positive competition. You're not rooting for the guy to pull a hamstring in practice.
Right.
You're trying to get better than your guy that's in your class. And I do think that's a difference. I think that is building the organization, not trying to just get yourself a starting role. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, you go back to when they were all rookies and you saw how close they were, and you said it. I mean, they all studied their playbooks together. They all got together on a regular basis trying to figure out the defense, and it was all of them working, trying to make the roster and encouraging each other. It wasn't ripping each other down. It wasn't a matter of getting after each other, trying to take the other person's job. It's, okay, how can I be better? How can I continue to get better? They got pushed by each other, and this class has been phenomenal. It's a lot of fun to watch, and it has changed what the Chiefs have been able to do on defense over the past 2 seasons. It's one of the biggest reasons that they are back-to-back Super Bowl champions, and it is definitely a key reason why they should be having a chance to go for a third in a row.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Now, they're not the only guys competing. Believe it or not, we still have more guys we haven't mentioned yet than we have, because that's how deep this position group is. Who can maybe rise out of that group? Where are the fights for depth spots going to rise? Who has the inside edge? Is it Nick Jones? Is it Echo Boydo? Is it a draft pick? Well, that's coming up next here on the Locked On Podcast Network. This is a great position group to talk about. Check out Locked On Sports today. You know it. It's 24/7. We got to get to it because there's just too many guys to talk about. Like I said, there's more to mention than we've gotten to so far. And in the nickel in particular, we talked the other day, it's likely going to be a guy from the 2023 class. And Chamari is the front runner. Nick Jones would be the guy inside there. Behind Nick Jones at the nickel is Roland Wallace. Guy from USC. I think he can play both inside and outside. He's listed as a nickel, but we have to keep in our brain that he could go outside if the need arose. But now you get down to the real competition, and it is a draft pick, this year's 6th-round pick, and Kamal Hadden. You have Echo Boydo, who's been with this team for a little bit now, K-State product. You have Keith Taylor, another Washington DB that I don't think many people remember had a year of overlap at UW with Trent McDuffie. Then Kelvin Joseph, who made some noise in OTAs and really is suited for the physicality that Steve Spagnuolo wants, followed up by DJ Miller and Miles Battle. And that is a heck of a group. I can't tell you who's going to emerge from that group right now. It's going to be knockdown, drag out.
And Miles Battle is a specimen.
Yeah, absolutely. What is it, 6032, I believe, if I have that right. Yeah, the man's a beast.
And thicker in
6032.
He's
196.
Yeah. And Josh Williams he's about Josh Williams' height, right? From what I remember. It's just, you look at this class, you look at this position, and it is absolutely ridiculous because we've already talked about it. Nazi and Trent, that's 2. Chamari Connor, that's 3. Williams and Watson, that's 5. You only normally keep somewhere around 5 corners on your roster. Now, Chiefs are likely to keep 6, and it's possible, considering if Connor can be playing multiple positions, that they'll keep 7. There's just a question, and this is something we're going to have to figure out in the next couple of days, because we're going to be having our roster prediction, at least our early roster predictions before training camp starts on the 16th. So be looking for that. But that doesn't even count a guy that they just drafted this year in Hadden. That doesn't count a guy like Boydo or Kelvin Joseph, who we've already talked about as well. So this is a extremely deep group, and you have to wonder, is there going to be somebody that's going to get moved from the group because of how deep it is? It's possible, but you look at the depth and you start looking at some of these players. I would say that somebody on this roster or somebody that's not going to make this roster is probably going to get claimed. And it would, if I could put money on it, I'd say it's probably going to be from the corner group, just because there's just so many guys there. You're going to have to cut somebody you don't want to. Yeah.
I mean, they all have similarities, right? They're all fairly physical players. If they're on the practice squad and they get cut, even if the Chiefs were to keep 6 or 7, you have to look at other teams playing special teams because punt return is still going to need outside gunners. Corners are going to be some of the most likely candidates for that, right? The physicality is something they look for in special teams so you can survive the season, having those big collisions, right? I don't necessarily feel like Kamal Hadden has the inside tilt just because he was a draft pick. Everyone else was acquired by another means, including Kelvin Joseph, who I think in terms of being the veteran in the backup group could be the guy that kind of rises to the front of that. He does have the most on-field time at this point. I do believe he has out-snapped Keith Taylor. And I think that's significant when we get to it. Those two guys would probably be at the top of my list right now. They both need to play physical. They both need to play in contact pretty quickly. It doesn't always have to be press, but it has to be pretty good man. We're not talking about playing. I think Kelvin Joseph was done a disservice by playing in an off-man quarter turn system in Seattle. This is more his style, and I do expect him to push through, though. But Keith Taylor's long and tall and got some turn ability. I think Joseph's a little faster. I think Kamal Haddon's a little faster than him. DJ Miller's a little bit quicker as well, not quite the length. Akaboido's got some special team snaps, so he's the guy that I'd be watching to get picked away. But you could trade, if you feel like it, Joseph, you could trade Haddon. You could probably get somebody to bite on Miles Battle. He made a couple of plays in OTAs. We'll see if he can carry that forward. If he can make a name for himself, man, it's going to be a free-for-all. If you're going to have to cut down, I don't know what
it's hard. Yeah, it's hard. And I would say, I disagree with you to an extent. I would say that Haddon probably has an inside leverage, at least at this point, just because he's a draft pick. Now, he's a 6th-round draft pick, so it's not like they have not cut 6th-round draft picks before. And if he is a guy that gets beat out by somebody else, they will keep whoever is a better player. Don't get me wrong. But right now, you're talking about 6 guys that the Chiefs drafted at the position.
Yeah.
That's how deep it is.
That's the way that it goes. Yeah.
Yeah.
4 of them, like you said.
And normally you're only talking about keeping 6. So.
And unfortunately, it's not quite, as we talked about the linebacker show, it's not quite as much a dire need for the outside, but except for the punt kick units that you really do need them. So that comes into what I'm going to do is, if you don't listen to any of the pressers this training camp, folks, when Dave Tobe's on the mic, pay attention because he's going to give you some insight as to what's happening at this position group.
We've said this every single year. Pay attention to who is on your special teams units because it is going to make a big difference as to who makes this roster. Because I think you look at it, I would say I feel pretty comfortable saying that you're going to have obviously you'll have McDuffie, you'll have Johnson, you'll have Chamari Conner, you'll have Watson and Williams. I feel pretty comfortable saying those are your top 5. I don't think that there's probably a big chance that that's going to change. I think they're all going to end up being on the roster starting game day. Obviously, injuries can change that. We saw that last year. But so with 5 pretty much already spoken for, do you have one or do you have more than maybe one position opening at the corner group? You know, we talked about it when we talked about safeties. Maybe they're going to have to keep 2 extra corners here and go down shorter at safety because you have a guy in Connor that can play both. And if Kelvin Joseph is a guy that makes the roster, he could potentially help you at safety if in dire need.
Yeah, more of the box safety role where he, again, can get his hands on. I would not be scared to put him up against tight ends in particular. So I do like him in that role. I don't really want him out in the robber or the free space as much.
Right.
But he can definitely do some things that might be able to help you in multiple ways.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of different questions. And you're right. We talk about all these guys, Keith Taylor and Kelvin Joseph are your veterans, but Boydo had a lot of special team snaps. That was something that was a big thing, and he's got a lot of length too. So he's going to be a guy that is going to challenge, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see this group compete against a better wide receiver core than what they had last year too. That's the other thing, is they're going to be going up against a wide receiver core that is going to be better than what they were last year, and they're going to be challenged every day by at least the 3 top wide receivers, because you're going to have Brown, you're going to have Worthy, and you're going to have Rice that are all going to be challenging these guys.
Yeah, and it's going to be a great battle. They will make each other stronger, and we'll have to see who rises. There's a lot to cover here. This is just one of the elite groups. We are counting down the rest of the roster groups and who are the impact players at each one. Do not miss it. Matt Derrick will be with us tomorrow. Thursday, we go to the defensive ends. The quarterback hunters are up on the list. And then it's Travis Kelce and all of his teammates inside that room before we get to the quarterbacks on Monday and our actual preseason 53-man prediction coming next Tuesday. So don't miss a show. Make sure you like, sub, and hit that bell. Become part of this channel. We very much appreciate that. All you everydayers who listen every day, watch every day, whatever you're doing, you get subbed on Spotify and Apple Music. You can do that as well. And then everything goes out that's breaking news on the 816-357-8781. That is our text line where you can get into the conversation just between us and our core Loco subscribers. We appreciate you guys. Hope you're ready for it. I'm excited. Matt Derrick tomorrow coming up on the Quarterback Hunters. That's probably my favorite show of this preseason. Please don't miss that one. And remember, we are doing the run-up all the way till training camps open. Be with us every day because we are 5 days a week. We appreciate you being with us today. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.